Hello, everyone. Welcome to Steven Shinder Reviews in video form. And this time I'm talking about Empire of Death, the season finale of Doctor Who Season 1, Series 14, Season 40, whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, we've had our first complete season of the 15th Doctor, and I know we have a Christmas special coming up in December as well, but yeah, this was the proper season finale. I don't know what number to call it, honestly. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I've seen that people's opinions on it are all over the map, and I can understand why certain things didn't satisfy some people. You know, some of the answers to certain questions weren't quite to their liking, and that's totally fair. But I don't know. This felt, and again, I'm assuming that if you're watching this, you've seen the episode, so spoilers and whatnot. Um, it felt par for the course for a typical Doctor Who season finale in the modern era. Well, first off, I really liked it. It exceeded my expectations, but didn't quite meet my hopes, and I'll get into that. So, after the cliffhanger of The Legend of Ruby Sunday, I thought to myself, man, they're gonna have a lot they're gonna need to wrap up in the next episode. And this isn't new. This has been done in previous Doctor Who two-parters where they have a really interesting setup and sometimes they'll stick the landing. I thought World Enough in Time and The Doctor Falls was excellent, but there are other times where I've felt that the concluding episode is lackluster. Uh, you know, I always forget the order of the episodes. Heaven Sent and Hellbent. I loved Heaven Sent, but Hellbent was lackluster in my opinion. It kind of threw out all this stuff that I thought would have been more interesting to explore. And, even the Master three parter in the David Tennant era, the solution being, oh, a prayer is what brings the Doctor back to his full form. It was like a very much a Tinkerbell type of thing that happened. So I was kind of expecting something rushed, and maybe that's why I enjoyed this episode more. I felt like it did more for me anyway than I was sort of expecting it to. And the episode was 56 minutes, which is longer than these other episodes. And people in Doctor Who fandom have been really wanting longer episodes, and here they have it. So I wasn't it I didn't have a huge set of things that I absolutely needed to happen. Like the main thing was um I really wanted Susan to appear, like even just a tease at the end of the episode, and then maybe the Christmas special is about her and the Doctor. We did not get that, so that kept it from being a perfect episode in my eyes. It felt kind of strange because with previous eras, maybe not so much maybe a little bit the Chibnall era. We've had episodes, season finales that have ended with a tease of what's to come in the holiday special. But here we did not get anything like that. It hasn't always happened, but there have been sometimes here and there. And I kind of expected that we'd get something like that here, but we did. We just got Doctor Who will return. And I took that to mean Doctor Who the character, not Doctor Who the show. I thought it was kind of charming the way that they ended like that. But yeah, with the beginning of this episode, we have Sutek basically dusting off Unit HQ. He's basically Thanosing them. And I saw people say that the stakes felt really low killing off all these characters early. But when I was watching this, I was like, even before watching this, I fully expected that whatever cataclysmic stuff would happen in this episode as a result of Sutek would be undone by the end of the episode. So it didn't really, like, I was unfazed by the fact that all this would get undone. But yeah, Unit is basically dusted. I thought it was a cool moment when Mel is on the motorcycle or motorbike or whatever with the doctor also sitting on there, and she's like, "There's nothing we can do but fight." And I really appreciate the inclusion of Mel in this episode. You could argue that she could have done or had a bit more to do in this episode. Um, we'll get to what ends up happening with her in a bit, but you have the mystery of like what happened that night that Ruby was left in front of the church, and they find this memory TARDIS, the memory TARDIS that has appeared in Tales of the TARDIS. But I should explain what Sutek's whole deal was. So he had been clinging to the TARDIS ever since the classic Who serial Pyramids of Mars, which I actually got around to rewatching on Tubi in preparation for it. And I thought the serial was okay. The pacing could be a bit better, in my opinion. And I even re listened to the Fourth Doctor Adventures audios that featured Sutek. I thought those were really good. And for the first time, listened to the Bernice Summerfield New Adventures, or whatever it's called, Triumph of Sutek, which I thought was also really good, maybe even a little bit better than those Fourth Doctor audios. I had a lot of fun listening to those, and I think I liked this episode ever so slightly more than those audios. So, and I've not experienced faction paradox, any of that. So, let alone the stuff that features Sutek in those. But yeah, the he's been clinging to the TARDIS since Pyramids of Mars, all throughout all those other adventures since then, and it really feels weird that that's a thing. It's definitely a retcon, retroactive continuity. Like in retrospect, he is part of the TARDIS when all of those past episodes were happening. And so I feel like there's going to be a trend now where people rewatch some episodes and they're like, okay, so what was Sutek thinking during this moment? But now we finally got around to revealing himself. And it took me until after watching the episode that the way Sutek looks when he has like, he's basically boxed around the TARDIS and with his head protruding outward, he looks like K9. Has anyone else noticed this? He kind of looks like K9, the way that he looks like that. But I do like his form in these episodes. He's larger. Uh, the Tales of the TARDIS segments for this apparently suggest that he has evolved. And I guess the Tales of the TARDIS segments with 15 and Ruby I guess that's supposed to fit somewhere in this sequence when the Doctor, Ruby, and Mel go into the memory TARDIS. It's sometime within that gap. I'm not really sure where, but or if it completely makes sense. But yeah, Sutek has basically each time the Doctor's TARDIS has landed somewhere, Sutek has created his own like an angel of death essentially, and I really thought for a moment that this was going to explain the origin of the weeping angels, and I'm really glad that it didn't, that they left that mystery. I think that would have been a bit too much, a bit too much more familiarity. And Sutek had of course learned about Susan while clinging to the TARDIS and finding its secrets. I was really surprised that there was never a moment where Sutek reveals that he has seen what's in the fob watch that has the Doctor's secret past that they don't remember, and that the 13th Doctor had thrown into the heart of the TARDIS. I was kind of surprised there was nothing like that. Maybe with Sutek using that as leverage against the Doctor. But yeah, like that was, yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like it's something that I'm surprised wasn't even considered for this, but whatever. So there are servants of Sutek all around the universe. The Doctor has traveled on so many places, countless places and times. So Sutek's forces, and he's had Susan Triad and Harriet Arbinger. They basically dust each planet that they are on, and in the TARDIS, the memory TARDIS, we get a view of how dusty and sandy the Earth looks from above. And to be honest, when it showed the above view of Earth, I thought it was kind of funny because it made me remember of the zoom in on Australia at the beginning of the Furiosa movie. Excellent movie, by the way. But the Doctor is like, this is all my fault, and basically uh, has a very emotional scream here. Also, when they entered the memory TARDIS, I really appreciated how nostalgic Mel got when she saw the Sixth Doctor's code. It made me really miss Colin Baker's Doctor, and later on, you see her with the Seventh Doctor's outfit. So the trio are in here for a while. They're basically seemingly the last, or some of the last humans around. There is a little bit of a, what feels like a little bit of a time skip. The Doctor meets a woman who forgot that her daughter died, and they have this talk that's, um, it's very emotional. And then, basically, like, she's gone, and then the Doctor, um, and the Doctor, Ruby, and Mel have basically been rewatching Pyramids of Mars on this tablet thing and trying to figure stuff out. The Roger App Williams stuff does get touched on briefly, but I'm really glad that the whole thing of 73 yards, I'm glad that there wasn't a complete explanation. Like, I feel like they incorporated a little bit, like just enough, without ruining the mystery of 73 yards. And of course, Ruby doesn't really remember that alternate timeline, but it was a nice little way of bringing it back in. So the Doctor basically comes to the conclusion that they need to go to 2046. And Sutek also wants to know the identity of Ruby's mother. And I forget how they properly explain this. It's something about Ruby's mother. um, in 2046 there would have to be records of everyone. Like, it's kind of a thing that's forced by Gwilliam. So uh, they think, okay, so in 2046, that's when Sutek would be, where he'd be trying to find out who Ruby's mother is. And they go there, and I hope I'm not like describing this badly. It's been like, it was a while ago. I've watched this episode. I've seen it only once, but um, they go and they confront Sutek, and of course, we've seen that Mel is being turned into one of these Sutek Angels of Death. It's very upfront with the audience about that, and it was supposed to be a surprise to the Doctor, but the Doctor had noticed and come up with a backup plan. So he and Ruby are able to best Sutek, and Ruby even has a moment where she has, she is she feels like she's so close to knowing who her birth mother is, but she like smashes a screen that she's holding, and it's quite a moment. And yeah, they trap Sutek. They put him on this leash, which I guess people found very goofy, but I don't know. I didn't really have a problem with the way that Sutek's defeat was handled. I don't know. I guess I was expecting something a bit more anticlimactic. Like, I did see people say that this episode felt anticlimactic, and it is how it is. But to me, I was just really vibing with the whole episode and the emotions of it. I thought the effects looked quite good, and the character interactions. So uh, the Sutek is being dragged through the time vortex, the thing that the TARDIS travels through, and it's basically like death, touching death, which I guess in my head, associating it with math, it's like a negative times a negative is a positive. So as it drags Sutek through the vortex, he is they're making him undo all the deaths that he caused. So everyone's being undusted. They basically do Infinity War through Endgame through the span of this episode. And some people had a problem with that, but I was fine with it. I was kind of surprised that there wasn't a moment where the Doctor considered somehow using Sutek in this way to undo the deaths caused by the flux back in series 13, or B, undoing the deaths on Gallifrey caused by the Master and whatnot in series 12. I was kind of surprised that did not come up as a plot point. The Doctor maybe going a bit mad with power and having to be reined in and whatnot. Like they didn't go that route. But there is a moment where the Doctor is basically like, you win, Sutek. This is what you've made me, a killer of monsters, that type of thing. So he like cuts the leash and lets Sutek die, essentially. And the Doctor, whether they kill or not, it's a thing that kind of goes back and forth and fluctuates. But I can understand how maybe in this moment the Doctor really does not want to be that person. But I mean, to be fair, he brought so many lives back to life, so it's like, it's bounces out. I think Godwa did a great job with the emotions in this episode. He out David Tennant. Wow, that was tough to say. So life comes back to Earth and the other planets. The Spoon Lady, as I guess she's called, who the Doctor spoke to earlier in this episode, she has her daughter back, and they're over at Unit. They're able to do a DNA test that fully confirms who Ruby's mother is, and it turns out that before this, there's a pose when the people at Unit, Kate, Rose, the others, where they stand side by side, and it almost looks like this is supposed to be a poster for some Unit spinoff, which I would not be opposed to a Unit spinoff TV show. Throw Shirley in there as well, because it's kind of whack that we haven't seen her like since last year. And something like that would give some of these side characters people thought didn't do very much here more to do. Like you'd be able to give Mel and Rose Noble more to do in a Unit spinoff. So I am curious about whether anything like that really is in the works. But yeah, we get a result for Ruby's mother, and it's an ordinary woman who is a nurse. Her name is Louise Ann Miller, and the name sounded similar to me. It sounds similar to Lucy Miller, one of the Eighth Doctor's companions in the Eighth Doctor Adventures audios from Big Finish, but it did not look like Lucy Miller to me. But apparently, other people thought it was Sheridan Smith, her actress. So I do wonder if maybe it's at least a little homage, just a tip of the hat to that name from Russell T. I mean, I guess that's possible. I don't know. But yeah, the whole thing is that she's an ordinary woman. She's not some important figure or someone from familiar from the Doctor Who mythology. It's just a regular person. And I saw a clip today where Russell T Davies was explaining that this reveal like was kind of written in reaction to the Star Wars sequel trilogy, cuz in those movies, and I mean those movies have been out for years now. The final one of that trilogy came out almost 5 years ago, so um the Last Jedi, so in the Force Awakens, the first of that trilogy, there's this build up making people wonder who Rey is, and so they're wondering about her heritage and if she might be related to someone. In the Last Jedi, we get this suggestion that she is a nobody from nowhere, which I honestly would have preferred, like, a hero uh, who's a hero despite not being related to anyone important. But then the Rise of Skywalker threw that out the window and made her the grandchild of Palpatine. Which, yeah, that was a bad choice. Um, uh, but I do like the idea of Rey becoming a Skywalker. People who watch that movie are like sort of miss the point of that. Like they make it seem like Rey stole the name from uh, the Skywalkers, when clearly in the film you see that they give her permission to use that name to honor them. But anyway, yeah, like I like that aspect of her being adopted into the Skywalker family, but not the like if she had been a nobody who became a Skywalker, like that would have been awesome. But the Palpatine angle like throws a little like unnecessary thing into that. So this Ruby's mother reveal is sort of in reaction to that, which is kind of funny because back when the Doctor, the 13th Doctor, found out that she used to be the timeless child and is the origin of regeneration and actually came from somewhere that's not Gallifrey. People thought that she became too, or the Doctor in general became too important. And I remember seeing a post where it's like, wow, I can't believe they revealed the Doctor is a Palpatine, that silliness. Um, so yeah, it's fascinating how I was sort of feeling those sequel trilogy vibes with Doctor Who series 12, and then we have something here that's in in direct reaction to the sequel trilogy. So the Doctor takes Ruby to where her mother is. So her mother would be like mid 30s now. She was 15 when she left Ruby on Ruby Road. Oh, and they reveal that the pointing in the footage, there was this ominous pointing that Ruby's mother was doing, and they were trying to figure out what it means. And it was simply that she was pointing at the sign which said Ruby Road. And I I feel like the way that they presented this could have been made to look less goofy. Like maybe her pointing shouldn't have looked as ominous and dramatic. It could have just been like a normal point, and they could still have wanted to analyze that. It felt very much like it was a response to Doctor Who fans trying to make too much out of something that they see happen in an episode, of like over speculating. Like it kind of felt like this was a commentary on that, but I don't know if it 100% is, but it definitely has those vibes, that meta angle, at least in terms of how it feels. So the Doctor takes Ruby to this cafe where her mother is, or coffee shop or whatever, and the Doctor says maybe we shouldn't talk to her because, like, if she really wanted to see you, she would have tried reaching out after all these years. And I would have been really upset if Ruby had listened and gone with that, but instead Ruby takes charge. She goes into the shop, she orders a drink, and she talks to her mother and says, I was named after the road I was left on, Ruby Road. And they have this emotional moment and this wonderful reunion. And you can see on the Doctor's face, the Doctor thinking about family and what, like, I take this to mean that the Doctor is thinking about how they don't know their own real parent or parents or what have you, their origins from before they became the timeless child who arrived on Gallifrey. Um, so, and of course, also thinking about Susan and having left her behind and never really come back, on the TV show anyway. The Five Doctors was kind of a random occurrence. There wasn't really closure there. So I do kind of feel like maybe the Doctor feels really guilty having left Susan and wants to reunite with her. And he even says a bit later that maybe I will see her again someday. And I really hope that we do see Carol Ann Ford as Susan in this era of the show. Because, Carol is still around. It would be that would really be squandering it, like not having her on the show when you have this opportunity here. And I was really hoping she'd be in the Christmas special. Now I'm hoping, next season. The sooner the better, because it just feels kind of mean, like baiting people into thinking Susan might appear again, and then it turns out to be Sutek. It's a gotcha type of thing, and it's kind of mean. And it would be nice to bring Susan back. So I do hope they go in that direction, and this isn't just a throwaway line from the Doctor. Ruby brings her birth mother to see her adoptive mother and grandmother, and they're all having a great time. Mrs. Flood seems like she might not be so bad after all, at least in how she was acting. But then I think the webcam thing is freezing, but whatever. Um, but yeah, the family is all good, and Ruby is kind of busy, spending time with family to really travel with the Doctor full time now. So her ride out here to me is very satisfying. It makes sense why she wouldn't travel with the Doctor full time. I think she's gonna be back next season. Maybe she'll pop up here and there, similar to how Rose and Mel pop up occasionally. And I mean that happened in Russell T's first era as well, with Martha coming back. um and yeah, it's kind of interesting how people say Rose Noble didn't have much to do here, and you have like the sequel trilogy um connections, and in Rise of Skywalker, another character named Rose wasn't given much to do. But yeah, hoping that Rose gets more to do uh in the New Jedi Order Star Wars movie whenever that comes out. Hopefully she's in that. And yeah, um, so I do like this write out. To some people, it might seem rushed because there weren't that many episodes with this duo of the 15th Doctor and Ruby. And I've seen some people say there was not enough development with them. But I don't know. I just fully bought into them being really great friends, right from the beginning. So I don't feel like there's really much development missing. I did see people are wondering still about the snow and about the song within Ruby. I think in the previous episode, they kind of tried explaining the snow as like, oh, the memory of that night is so strong that's going through time or whatever. So I don't know if they'll elaborate further on that or the song aspect, but yeah, this isn't the last we're seeing of Ruby, so maybe they'll touch on some of that a bit more. Who knows? So yeah, there's this hug goodbye, and as the Doctor departs, we see Mrs. Flood on the roof of the Sunday household, and she's wearing this white outfit that people have pointed out looks similar to something that Romana wore. And she also has the umbrella, which kind of brings to mind Missy, with her Mary Poppins whole whole deal. I don't expect Mrs. Flood to be someone familiar. I know some people wondered if she might be the White Guardian, but with all that's happened, I'm just expecting her to be a new character. Maybe there will be something interesting about her, even like as a new character. Not all of these villains have to be tied back to the classics. So yeah, I'm very curious to see where they take this from the Christmas special onward. The Christmas special being written by Stephen Moffat. Um, So yeah, I guess we'll see what happens then. And like I said, I really liked this episode. If Susan had appeared at the end, Carol Ann Ford as Susan, this probably would have been a 10 out of 10 for me, but that didn't happen. And, there's little things here and there. So I think for me, it's a 9 out of 10. It's my favorite of the season, or my second favorite if you include the church on Ruby Road. And I did the math, and overall, my average for this season would be 7.6 ish or 7.9 ish if you include Church on Ruby Road. So I'd say this is an enjoyable season overall. There have definitely been some better Doctor Who episodes, but I really don't consider this as bad as people make it out to be or how they perceive it or whatever. I really had a great time watching this season overall, and talking about it week to week. So yeah, and whether there will be more than 8 episodes next time, who knows? But I felt like the number of episodes was fine for me. But I'm a busy guy, so maybe that's why. So yeah, it's Empire of Death. I'm sure as soon as I stop recording and or after I upload, I'll think of something that I forgot to mention. But it is what it is. I think you get the point of like what I think of this episode. I thought it was really good. I know lots of people are mixed on it, but I enjoyed the ride overall. So yeah, that's it for me. I'm Steven Schinder, and see you all next time.